So welcome aboard, Dylan. Great to have you with us in Iowa, and a really nice question about what is the average size of a line pride. It varies quite a lot from in different parts of Africa. Up in the east of Africa, where you've got massive amounts of, you just got a female coming through here behind this tree, mate. There we go. She's repositioning. So Dylan, they do vary. Up in East Africa, where you have the massive herds of wildebeest occur, they can get up to numbers of, I think there was a composition of 14, 15 prides I've read somewhere that were totaling over 150 animals in one area. But typical numbers are sort of about 13 lions, 14 lions, and down in the Sabi Sands that's also true. You're looking at about sort of 7 to 9 to 13, 15 lions. And you know what the interesting thing about that too, Dylan, is that the pride size, particularly the females, will excuse me please, will end up working themselves out through the prey availability. So if there's too little prey, excess females will disperse, and if there's a lot of prey around and they don't recruit within the pride, they will take in nomadic females to the herd. The pride. So you'll get a variation that occurs due to food availability, and it's a seasonal sort of food availability, Dylan. So really great question, mate, and I hope that answered your question. What was the number of the average number of lions in a pride? And it's roughly in the Sabi Sands between 7 to 13 up to 15 lions. Thanks very much, Dylan, and great to have you on board. Just going to reposition here, folks, to give my co-pilot a little bit of some more shots to look at. The lions are completely relaxed, as you saw then. They didn't even lift their heads. They may just lift their heads when I reverse a little bit. So we just got a lovely question from Suzanne in the Netherlands. Welcome aboard, Suzanne, and let me just get a little bit better shots for my friend here. And Suzanne, your question is about lion's fur and what it feels like or what it looks like. I hope that's a good spot for you, Liam. You might get through there. I'll roll forward a bit for you. Suzanne, this fur on the lion is quite coarse, but still obviously soft, as in fur in most predators. But no, it's not like a domestic cat, as you're asking. It's much coarser. When they're cubs, obviously, it's very, very soft, but with any of the predators, as time goes on, that fur has to act as a barrier to the environment in whatever way, shape or form, whether they're just walking through thick vegetation, or whether they're hunting, or whether they're fighting, and hence that amazing mane that does a lot of things for the males. It will be a buffer against fighting and sustaining those sort of really serious wounds that they can do in a fight. Also makes the male look incredibly impressive. So those manes actually vary in shape, size and colour all over Africa, from very, very dark black to very, very pale blonde and short. They really do vary considerably throughout the geographical locations that the lions occur in Africa. Great question. Thank you very much, Suzanne. So we are with some flat cats at the moment. We've got 7 lions here with us, and they are all down out for the count at the moment. So I think this is a really good opportunity now to cross over to Peter and see what he's up to. I don't think these guys are going anywhere fast, but I'm going to sit with them for a little while. They were being a little bit more alert, but now even the ones that were keeping watch are now gone down for a sleep. So let's cross to Pete and see what he's up to.
Well guys, welcome back this side. Great to have those lions. Look forward to seeing what they get up to today, later on as well in this afternoon. We're back with this elephant herd. As always, lots going on. Difficult to decide what to look at. We've got 2 young ones playing with each other in the front there. We've got these 2 big females to our right hand side. And as I said earlier, we are going to show you that little one again. I have seen him, we're just waiting to get a good spot that we can watch him. Oh, hello. Look at what she's doing. She's feeding close to us. She's a bit curious, so she's just feeding around the base, closer to the vehicle. Partly because she is feeding, but partly also because she wants to see us, get a better look at us. There's that little one going past. We are going to look at it again just now, but for now this female is just beautiful. Mature female, she's in her prime, just looking at the tusks, the ears, the size of her. And then when you get this close to them, you sit at this distance and you can hear them chewing and hear them breathing and almost feel them. You do get a sense of the intelligence, the curiosity that's there. You do get a definite sense of presence and interaction. She's looking at us as much as we're looking at her. She's had a look and listen. We were talking about listening to them earlier. They listen to us as well, the sounds we make, and the tone of voice plays a big role, I found, with elephants when they're around you. There's the little guy. We will try and get a better look, but there's that young baby, weeks old. I was estimating earlier, I would say probably 4 to 6 weeks. I think that's pretty close, maybe even less. Maybe 2 to 4 weeks or 3 to 5 weeks. Maybe that's a better estimate range. That was a very lucky view for us as well, because they were coming through a little bit of a, not a clear, more open area. There they're going into thicker stuff again. Just going to move around slightly, get a better space. It seems I'd heard that we had meeting up earlier. It seems they've just, not split, but they're moving slightly separate from each other again. I can see the other herd more over towards the west or our right hand side. But we're going to stick with this little guy, just because he's so little. Not every day you get to see a baby that is that small, and within a herd that is this relaxed. You know, that's also a big part of the experience here. Allowing us to have a look at them and having a look at us in turn. If you've just joined us for the drive, or maybe you've been away for a few minutes, just catching up again, those lions from earlier, we had great lions early morning, we still have them, but they are what is traditionally referred to as flat cat. That's when they just lying down, not doing much. They might still be active, it's not that hot yet, but probably they'll stick around there for the day. HD is still with them. If any activity happens, we'll go back. But we're just following along this beautiful breeding herd. We just had a great moment when they all came past us, so not all of them, but about 7 or 8 of them, and we could see that young baby, that little calf that we saw earlier. I'm just moving around the side at the moment, try and get another place where we can sit and get a good view of them. But now they're grouping together a bit as well. It's almost as if they're picking up a bit of pace. Perhaps they want to head towards a waterhole. The matriarch would decide that. She's maybe decided it's time to get to where we can get a drink. Just hold on a second, let me just find our spot here. But I think just up ahead, just going to wait for somewhere where there's a little bit of an opening, like a bit of a clearing, and then we'll sit there and wait for them. Lovely herd, this. Our stations, Nkuhuma, Mhlambi and Dlov, approaching Triple M, close to the Skovanin, north from Triple M Junction, just north of that Skovanin. That's all I'm doing there. I'm just going to do it again on another channel to let everyone know. All stations, Mhlambi and Dlov, Nkuhuma, Mhlambi and Dlov, heading towards Triple M, north of the first Skovanin, north of Triple M Junction, heading in a westerly direction. I'm just updating the game drive channels. Other vehicles like us that might be looking for a good sighting. This is brilliant, tiny little baby, so much to see. I'm just letting them know on the radio, the same as they do for us as well when we find leopard together and help each other find different things. Look at that. Termite mound, bit of a clearing. I'm hoping they're all going to just walk right past us here. Hoping with a little bit of luck that we'll get that small one also coming past us. And of course these ones, these youngsters, they might do exactly what this one is doing. Yes, good morning, we see you. Now let me just get my bearings. Yes, I think if I have it correct, the little guy is in that group. Basically in that group there's a couple of small ones. Just keep an eye on them when they come through. That little one should be there. Let's see, here they come. I'm just getting my jacket off. It's getting very warm very quickly now. Look at the three musketeers. Hey guys. Okay, I thought that tiny one was in this group, but it seems not. Maybe it's still coming. I've lost visual of it for the moment. Oh, there in the back. We are going to get the treat, I think. Although everyone that comes past like this is a treat. Here's that big female again. Oh, sorry, I'm on the wrong side. Here we go. The little one. Look at that trunk. Daniel, you were asking earlier the length of an elephant's trunk. That one is about not much more than 1.5 feet, 2 foot long. Look how it's staying on the other side of the adult. Still a bit unbalanced. Oh, that's just stunning. That little guy will probably weigh, I'm trying to guess it now, I doubt even 100 kilograms yet. And I'm very tempted to make my estimate younger and younger. I'm more inclined to say sort of 3 weeks, 4 weeks. I don't think much more than a month. Just looking at the balance, it was still stepping in a little hole, then it almost sort of lost its footing. So still very new to the world, discovering other elephants, cousins and family members that come and greet you, and discovering that close-knit family unit. This little calf would have had interaction from all these elephants many times over the last many days. And then just discovering your environment. Sticks and branches and twigs and holes and water and mud, all these things to get used to. And then of course, to come back to the trunk that we spoke of earlier, that little elephant is so small it will still have to be learning how to use the trunk how to coordinate the trunk better, how to move it better. The same as we have to learn. We have to learn how to use our hands, how to use our eyes, how to develop that coordination. The same for the elephant. Right, well, these guys are coming up to one of the main roads, what we heard me on the radio just now, called Triple M. So I'm going to get onto the road and just wait for our last view as they're crossing there. It should be lovely. Yes, look at that. Can you see right on the edges? That's how fresh this calf is, how new it is. Wow, this is awesome. Guys, that's looking straight back behind us. We don't normally try and get that angle, but this is just too good. He's like this big. Literally, he could stand on the dashboard here and be quite happy to stand there. He could sit next to me in the seat with us going for the drive. That's how small that little guy is. Oh, and going along with him. So that young elephant in his first few weeks of life, you know, it's important that he gets positive experiences with vehicles, like with all the wildlife here, because of the relationship between humans and the environment here. The fact that we coexist peacefully, if you want. The fact that, oh, there's one chasing another one, a bit of interaction there between the adults. The fact that we always, you know, aware of, or what's the right word, sensitive to the behavior of the animal. They learn that they can trust our behavior as well. Vice versa, we learn that we can trust them. And it's good to reinforce that with our behavior. So, long reason for why I might not follow them if it gets very thick. But at the moment, the only thing that's getting thick are the elephants around us. So let's go and sit in the middle of them. Unfortunately, where we are right now, my radio is breaking up a bit, so I'm not always hearing your question so clearly, Dylan, but I could hear the gist of it. It sounded like you're from Nepal, but I might be wrong. But Dylan, whoa, what's going on? There's a lot of upset behavior there from the Franklins. You could hear that sort of cackling in the background. Something really bothered those Franklins. Oh, Dylan, okay, it sounds like you're from Iowa. Sorry, I don't know how I heard Nepal through that, but two-way radios can be a funny thing sometimes. Dylan, you're just asking if matriarchal elephants sometimes would be challenged by other females. In other words, a senior female, would she go and stand up against the matriarch and challenge her? I'm sure that can happen, but it's not, as far as I know, not something that is common. You get bull elephant competing with each other, physically fighting sometimes, even severely fighting. But with matriarchs and elephants within the herd, I mean, this is quite a big female. She's definitely not the matriarch, but she's big enough that she could theoretically be looking after her own group. And normally, not always, but very often, when you've got a split of herds, so let's say the herd's getting too big, you're now getting to 30, 40 elephant, and depending on the habitat, maybe it's better to be smaller units. Quite often, that herd will split, and the female that becomes the new matriarch, the one that leads the herd, will very often be the female that was one of the eldest daughters of the matriarch, or one of the senior females or second in charge female of the herd. So you've got the matriarch, you've got second in charge, the herd gets too big, and second in charge, because she's been working with a matriarch, will split off and you'll get two different herds. Those herds very often will join again through the course of the day or through the course of the next weeks and months over time. As I said, they sort of move away a little bit and join together again into sort of larger herds. And that, as far as I know, from what I've seen over many years of looking at ellies and what I've read and spoken to people that also love elephant, you know, they work it out amongst themselves. They're bright animals. There's no point for the matriarchs to fight with each other. Because they've been living together day to day, week to week, moment to moment for many years prior to sort of rearrangements of the breeding herds, if that makes sense, doesn't it? This this is just so awesome. We are really just part of this herd now. And they spread out all around us. Look at that. Now I've just rolled up to 6 feet away from this female in front of us. And she just stood there and did her thing, moving along slowly now. In fact, I want to try and roll slightly forward again. It's actually nice. I normally prefer if you have a bit of a gradient or a bit of a slope. It's lovely with elephant if you can just roll the car without the engine, because the engine provides a different type of noise than the movement of the car. Great when you stop as well. That rustling of the elephants moving along, the sound I described earlier. But also just bird calls, little songs and whistles. We all love the big animals, you know. I'll be the first to admit that. I love to sit with elephant herds. I love to sit with leopard. But just as they have their daily things to do, even the smallest things do as well. The little robin down in the riverbed that's singing his song to look for a mate, or the young birds that are growing up now after being hatched a few months ago in summertime. Everything has got its things to do for the day.
So folks, we've just left that Nkuhuma Pride because they were flat out and completely fine. They'll be there, I think, when we get back, unless an unsuspecting prey animal walks onto them, but I'd say they'd probably be still around that area anyway if that happens. I thought it was worthwhile we moved on. We see flat cats a lot and they're beautiful, but I think there's loads more out there to see as well. So we know where they are. I've dropped a little pin on my map and we've put a little marker on the road. We'll go back to that exact location this afternoon for our sunset drive and hopefully be able to catch up with them and see what they're up to. But that was a fantastic sighting this morning. And that all happens right from like 10 o'clock last night when we were sitting around the fire and we heard those. Well, actually, I even heard them when we were looking at those hyena yesterday on the close of the sunrise drive. So that whole sort of information stream carries on right to this morning when, you know, we sit around and have a coffee before we drive out. We talk to Scott and Steph and we say we heard them directly below the camp. Scotty and Steph on. It's just this beautiful thing that unfolds over time. We've got lovely Ellie's here. This is Ellie-tastic this morning. There's so many elephant on the reserve at the moment, folks. It's beautiful. Something very, very special about watching elephants drink. How's that for you, Leon? Good. So just a small herd. It could be just part of a herd, but this is sort of an average family size actually. You know, 6 to 7 animals, and then they'll meet up with other herds that are potentially related to them. Then you've got kinship herds, which are herds that they might frequently bump into, and it just depends on so many things. I think there's been so much beautiful, wonderful science done on elephant movements by fantastic scientists all over Africa, but still there's reasons behind things that we just do not know, and I like that. I like that there's still a mystery. Let's just watch this this female just to see what she's up to. She's come round just as I arrived. I'm not very familiar with this individual, so we'll just keep an eye on what she's up to. She might be just moving over into the shade. I think that's actually what she was up to. Yeah, she looks pretty fine, pretty relaxed. Gabby is in Johannesburg. Fantastic, Gabby, to have you on board with us. And Gabby is 7 years old, watching us this morning on Wild Safari Live. This is brilliant stuff, Gabby. Gabby, I'm just watching this elephant just off to my left here, and I'm just going to come back to your question, my friend, in a second. She's absolutely fine. You're okay, Vim. You can stay on those guys, mate. I'll keep my eye on this female here. Gabby, how are you? Welcome aboard. What a beautiful morning in your country. You are so lucky to live in this country, my friend. It is one of the most fantastic countries in the world. Your question, I'm not sure if I actually know the exact answer for, so I think I'm going to have to get some people to go and research it for me, and we'll talk to all these other people that are on social media with us. Your question is, how thick is an elephant's skin when it's fully grown? I can't give you the exact amount, so that's a question I can't answer properly, Gabby, but I tell you what, how about we put it out to everybody to research for me now. I'm brilliant. We're just watching these elephants move off from their drink now. And I have read it before, Gabby, in a book, but my memory escapes me right now. And let's see what people come back with. Gabby, what a lovely country you have here, my friend. And I'm so privileged to be here. Beautiful stuff. So we just come up to this water point. We're watching these elephants just finishing off their drink and moving away now. And Gabby has asked a great question. Gabby is 7 years old in Johannesburg, in the mother country of where we are, the capital. We're sitting here talking to Gabby, and I'm asking everyone on social media to help me find that exact number. I can't quite remember what it is. I have read it, of how thick an elephant's skin is when it's fully grown, and that would be great for us to find out, to share with Gabby. And Gabby, I was just saying how wonderful your country is, and we're sitting here right in the middle of Sabi Sands watching these beautiful elephants. So just had her trunk up in the air, just smelling, using that trunk. That trunk is one of the most appendages that an animal could ever dream of having. It is used for drinking, as you just saw. It's used for browsing, which means basically feeding off the vegetation that's off the ground. Grazing as well, which they pull the grass out of the ground. It's used for digging if they need to find water in a dry riverbed. It's used to fight with. They use it as a weapon as well. They use it in communication. It's just used for so many things, and it's you can see right now she's just picked up some sort of branch over there. I can't quite make out what it is, but beautiful. Just want to have a little look at this hippo over here. I'm getting a glance out of the corner of my eye that she has a very young calf with her. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe it's something else, but I think it might be a calf under her chin. I knew I'd read it somewhere, but sometimes those little tiny bits of information can slip out of your mind. But Gabby, about 2.5 to about 4 centimeters, so about a little bit bigger than a school margin on your book, maybe just a little bit bigger than that. 1.5 times the school margin in your book, and that will make a difference. On the back of the head it'll be a little bit thinner than it is maybe around the abdomen or the belly. Back down. Thanks for your question, buddy. When they come to the water point. They do that wonderful strut down to the water. Okay, son. So Elizabeth's on Twitter at the moment, and Elizabeth's wanting to know whether hippos give birth to their calves in the water, and they do. They give birth in the water and on land. It can vary. It's not always in the water, and it just depends on what the location is and how they feel about the territory that they're in. It really is. There's lots of different variables on that, but generally speaking, it is in the water. Really long gestation period as well, 8 months, and they will remove themselves from the area and find a nice isolated position to give birth to that calf, and then very, very protective over that calf, and they'll stay with that calf 120 pounds or something like that. I'm having a bit of a guess at when they're born, and they will be kept away from the herd, and then they'll be brought in, and then sometimes there has to be a sort of a rotational thing, because the mothers do have to go out to graze, and when they do go out to graze they will put those animals in a creche, and then one cow or a couple of cows will protect that herd. And then after about 5 months they start to go out and graze with the mother at night, and then come back in to the safety of the water point. We've got a few other elephants just about to come down. They're moving through the bush now, ever so. They're just grazing their way through, or browsing their way through. You can just see them off above the dam wall there. We've got this lovely one in the foreground here, just having a drink. Those tusks on this one are quite splayed out there, as you can see. Unusual. So we've just been sitting here at Buffalo's Hook Dam, a great dam that if you do spend a little bit of time here and you come at the right time, which what is the right time? It's just serendipity really that brings you in here, and if you come here you'll get elephants coming down, you've got hippo. There isn't a lot of bird life here at the moment, but we've definitely got the big mammals, and we've just been sitting here watching these beautiful elephant come down to drink. So nice to watch, folks. I think, please excuse me if I don't pronounce your name correctly. Is it Machia in Washington? I apologize. I've got if I've pronounced that incorrectly. But your question is a great one about their trunk and how they drink. Do they breathe in the water, or does some water go up their nose, and can they drown? Well, the first part of your question is the water does go up their trunk, and then they lift it. They suck it up through their trunk, and then they lift it, put their end of their trunk into their mouth and blow it back into their mouth, just underneath where their trunk is at the top of their head there. So it goes into their mouth and they swallow it like that. They don't drink it through their nose. And the second part of your question is, can they drown? Well, any mammal, any non-marine mammal can drown. If they were to go in the water and they got stuck or they were injured or something, there's a definite chance they could drown. They're a terrestrial mammal. They need to be on land. They do go into the water and they can swim brilliantly. They can also have their trunk just out of the water, breathing as they swim. So there's some fantastic things you can see with elephant in the water. But yes, they do need to breathe on land, and they can drown. But I've never seen an elephant drown. They're quite confident in the water, and they are great swimmers. Thank you very much for your question. Catherine, welcome aboard, and great to have you from Texas, great part of the world, and thank you very much for joining us this morning. Catherine, you're asking whether how long do elephants need to, or how long can they go without water, and the answer to that is dependent on the particular geographical location of the elephants. Now, elephants in this part of Africa do have pretty good access to water points unless it's a drought situation, and in parts of if you go to the opposite side of where we are in Africa, into Namibia, you'll find that elephants have adapted their behavior considerably. Elephants like to drink once, maybe twice a day, and sometimes more in the really, really hot parts of the year. And roll around. They love water. They really do. They bathe, they play, they really have a great time in water. But where water is not as abundant, they have to modify their behavior. So there's elephants in Namibia, for example, that can walk great distances into the sort of scores of kilometers or miles, 50, 60, 70 kilometers and more to get water, and they might only drink once every 2 days, but it just depends on the geographical location, and if there's water around, they love it, and they certainly do love fresh water. So, and whenever you go to somewhere like Kruger Park and you've got some of the boreholes that have been put in by man to aid the wildlife there, they love to put their trunk in and get water that's being pumped up fresh from the borehole. So they do love it, and thank you very, very much for your question. How long can they go for? Really depends on where they are. They'll try and drink a few times a day if they can, but if it's in parts that are more arid and the water's not abundant, they can go for 2 and 3 days, but they'll start to have to really find water then before they start showing signs of deterioration and dehydration. Thank you so much for your question. Okay, well, we've only got elephant over there in the distance, so we might move around and see those guys a little bit now, and then we will go over and cross to see what Pete's up to, I think, because I'm sure we know what Pete's like. He's always up to something. We'll see you just now.
Hey, welcome back on this side. Not welcome back, I mean you haven't gone anywhere. You've been enjoying those elephants with Hayden at Buffelshoek Dam, another small breeding herd. It really is fantastic at the moment, just elephants everywhere. And speaking of things everywhere, we've just come up to, oh, nice bird life here, let's go have a look at them. Just coming up to twin dams and nothing big around, but as is often the case, if you look around you'll see very interesting small things. And these are stunning birds. We hear them often, we mention them often, you know, when we hear them in the bush. Quang. Quang. It's pretty close to what they sound like. I always still refer to them with their older name, a grey lory. The name was changed some years ago to go away bird. In Afrikaans we have a very apt name for them. They're called a kwee voël. So the Afrikaans name literally is the sound they make with bird. So the Afrikaans name translated would be kwee bird. These guys are having a nice morning. Next to the waterhole, lories love drinking water like many other birds, but you find them often around waterholes. And they're also doing a bit of grooming, and it looks like a youngster. The one on the left-hand side there of the two is a juvenile. If you look very carefully, the feathers on the back are still slightly sort of fluffy almost. And the crest is also not fully developed yet. And so this looks to me like, as I said, sort of not baby birds, but young birds. A few doves around. I can hear a robin, a white-browed scrub robin singing in the distance. Sesticula behind us. All those sort of quiet, peaceful noises, if you want, of the bush around us. What was that? Oh no, it's just a bit of movement. The base of the tree there was just sort of in there, but for a split second I thought it might be a snake or something like that, but it was just another bird. A bulbul, quite a cool name as well. A bulbul, in Afrikaans we call them a tiptol. You get some really interesting sounding birds' names as well. I mean, many of them don't necessarily have a meaning as such, but the sounds of the names can be quite fun in itself. I think we're going to sort of wind our way slowly along Cheetah Cut Line through that area where you had the lions earlier. They are flat cat sleeping. It's getting nice and warm now as well. So I don't think those lions are going to be doing anything for the rest of the day other than lying around. But I do want to go out to Buffelshoek Dam. We were only a few minutes ago with HT, and we'll probably get up there in the next 15 minutes or so, 20 minutes depending on what we see. I haven't been to Buffelshoek Dam myself for a few days, and I love that waterhole. So we're going to aim for that sort of towards the end of drive, end off there, unless we bump something interesting en route. Hey. And that was something. I think it's gone. We'll know shortly or soon enough if it isn't. If I start doing a very funny dance here, it's because the never fell down my back is busy biting or something, but I think it's climbed out. Okay, let's make our way towards Buffelshoek Dam, and I think in the next couple of minutes we'll probably just be doing a bit of driving, which is a big part of game drives, going to different areas, looking around. So it's great to have some questions as well. You can email them in, very simple questions, at WildEarthTV or hashtag Safari Live to get it on the Twitter feed, which is Twitter. And you can tweet it, and we'll have a bit of a chat, answer a few questions, and just enjoy the safari experience. Well, that's a good conversational question. Jamie, hello. Goeiemorgen. Jamie is from the Netherlands, so I presume you speak Dutch. Afrikaans is actually much closer to Flemish. But Jamie just asking, what are the big five? We often refer to the big five and just wondering what that is. Now, many of you might be wondering the same thing. Many of you might know. Some of you might have an idea. Let's get a bit of feedback as well. I'm gonna pose a question back to you while we discuss this question, Jamie. Those of you, and let's try and make this. I'm going to try and make this into a trick question without confusing myself. But how many species potentially are part of the big five in Africa? Let's be specific to the continent. And this is a question I'm throwing back at those of you guys that are going on lots of game drives, because there is a little bit of a, what was that? Was it a twig or a little snake? Oh no. Let me show you what this is. We're driving on one of the bigger roads here. Guys, just a piece of rubber. Just to not pull your leg there a little bit. Obviously came off from one of the game drive vehicles, but we'll pick it up and throw it away at home. Alright, so Jamie, what are the big five? My question back at everyone, if you want to let us know, how many species of animals can potentially be part of the big five? And would that mean we have big five or perhaps big six? If you want to send those through, we'll talk about that later on. But Jamie, in short, the big five are the animals that were named the big five, not because necessarily being the biggest, but it's a term that originates from the hunting days, which the early exploration days, we talk about the 1900s, when people, the early explorers, the early naturalists, the early conservationists, guys, it's very important to realize, were the guys that were exploring those frontiers, the hunters of the 1800s and early 1900s. I grew up reading so many books about them. It's a very romantic era, very romantic era for many of us, the same as the Old West in North America. The exploration days, the days of wild frontiers and wild spaces being much larger still than the sort of cultivated spaces. And those were the animals that were most dangerous to hunt. Which is why, for instance, a hippopotamus, even though it's a potentially very dangerous animal, is not part of the big five, because they were simple enough to hunt. Same goes for giraffe, perhaps. So the big five are, let's just get to the direct answer for you, Jamie. The big five are, let's start from the biggest down to the smallest. Elephant, rhino, and there's the part of the trick question from earlier, we'll get to that. Buffalo, or the Cape buffalo specifically, we're talking about the African big five. The other one we saw earlier, lion, and the smallest of the big five, but maybe in terms of the definition of it, one of the ones to be reckoned with the most under hunting conditions would be leopard. So leopard, lion, the two cats, buffalo, rhino, and elephant. And that term then spilled over into tourism when tourism started developing, and when ecotourism and photographic safari started developing in the very early days of sort of mid-1900s, for the sort of, I almost want to say for the lucky few. You know, Hemingway, for instance, was a big fan of going on safari, and all those early explorers. And then later on here into the 70s, mainly in the 80s and 90s, when ecotourism really started taking off, Sabi Sands playing quite a key role in that actually. And that term went through to it. So it's now a ecotourism term. And I'm going to wait for a couple of answers first to see if anyone came up with what I was trying to play towards about the big five and which species specifically is part of that. I'll give you my feedback on that. The reason I asked that, we're going to stop with these impala for a minute or two, is that there could be more than 5 species that fall under the definition of modern day ecotourism or modern day photographic safari big five. And if that's still a bit Confucius, do you think, for those of you that follow game drives a lot, that there are maybe more than 5 species of animals that are classified as big five? Let us know, and I'll give you my take on it just now. Oh, look at that beautiful, lovely herd of impala. I'm just going to stop in the shade here because the sun is getting hot, and we're going to spend a couple of minutes before we head up to Buffelshoek Dam. Such pretty antelope. You know, we see a lot of impala, but they are truly one of the sorry, another explanation just jumped into my head. They are also, you know, you could say the staple of the bush for a lot of predators, but I was going to say one of the true characters in the bush. And I've got so many great memories, if I think back to the bush, that were related to impala during the lambing season, when those lambs are running around and strutting their stuff, literally. Rutting season, when the males are competing. The alarm calls early morning when the sun is rising through the mist, and you can hear that tch, 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 when the impalas are calling when they see a leopard or a lion. I do love impala. And we're going to wait for a couple more feedback, but at the same time, I just want to say hello. Claire, as always, nice to have you on Game Drive. We don't talk all that often, but I know that you got that question quite quickly. You've been on many drives with me, so you know my mind. But Claire has hit the nail on the head with my question earlier. Let's just look at these guys a bit more. That's a young male. This is sort of a mixed herd. Mainly females, but there's a couple of young males. They will be pushed out very, very soon. As the rutting season comes along, the big males won't tolerate even young males in the breeding herds, and they'll push these young guys into the bachelor groups. There's a male. He had a good season last year. You can see he probably had a fight to the point where he broke the horn. There you can see he's chasing one of the young males. Exactly that. Reminding them, listen guys, rutting season is coming up. I don't want young males around. There's chasing another one. Just turn slightly. Just another look or two. This is actually a beautiful sighting. Well, here's the male I mentioned. Just the fact that he's broken that horn during a fight. And I'm guessing last year, you can see it's an old break. He's still dominant. You can see what he's doing at the moment. He's chasing only the young males. He's not messing so much with the females. He's letting those young males know that, listen guys, rutting season is coming up. I'm going to give you grief. Lots of other males are going to give you a bit of pressure as well to leave the herd. And that's how they move off into the bachelor group, so that the big males can compete for possible mating opportunities. There he goes again, straight towards the young males. And he's actually herded them out of this group. That was very fortunate timing. There's the youngster coming around again. He's chasing him. There's the young one. You see the one of the young horns, or the smaller horns. And there's the rutting call as well. Sort of a guttural, throaty call. That was really nice. Interaction. Sorry, I was getting myself confused there. Guys, and now we've actually got them separated. It's really difficult to show now because they've run off into the bush. But those young ones, I've actually been separated from the group now. So there's two youngsters that side. It's young impalas. I'll try and show you, but oh, there we go. A little window. And you can see the shape of the horns showing that they're young ones. This one would have been born the previous to last lambing season, so about a year and a half old. And you'll see more and more of this over the next weeks, next 6 to 8 weeks rutting season. You're going to see a lot of this behavior. It'll be one of the things you enjoy on Game Drive when going out and about on safari. we're moving along again. That was quite a nice little view actually. Enjoyed that. Impala behavior was quite a lucky coincidence that as we talked about it, the male was actually showing us exactly what I was mentioning. The fact that the big males, the big rams as you call them with Impala, will be starting to put more and more pressure on the young males to leave the herd. And we're slowly heading up to, what is that, Ahina Tracks, up to Buffelshoek Dam. We're going to finish off that question I asked earlier about the big five, but before that I think we had another question, so let's deal with that quickly and enjoy the last part of the drive. Hello Lisa, you are wondering if there's been a decline in predator numbers and if that's had an increase in prey species or in antelopes. So I'm not quite sure if you're referring to the sort of the micro areas, so the micro environment around here, or the bigger picture of Sabi Sands or Kruger even. But you must find that throughout the year, in other words, it's a bit like let's compare buffalo and grazing to predators and prey species, and I think you'll get my point just now, is that when it rains in summer and there's lots of water, you get lots of grass, so the grass will actually outgrow the amount of grass that the buffalo can eat. So by midsummer there's much more grass than the buffalo have been eating, but by the end of winter, because the grass stops growing for the winter time, the grass will be quite short, and as you might have seen on drives over the last couple of years, towards the end of winter it can be quite bare. But then the rains come again and the grass picks up again. And you would have to think of it a little bit the same with your predator-prey relationship. Impalas that we just looked at, as I said, they are what you refer to actually as a buffer species. They are, part of the food provision for a lot of the predators. In summertime, when they have their lambs, which we're going to rutting season now, so they mate during the course of a fixed period of time, about 6 to 8 weeks around autumn and early winter, which means they have their offspring around a fixed period of time about 6 months later. So come November, December, there's a lot of impala and kudu and warthog and waterbuck, and all the antelopes tend to have their young around that time. So you have a massive increase in prey species. So it might seem there's a lot more impala now, but they're not going to have babies again until the end of this year. So in that time the predators are chipping away at them again. So there is a balance between predator and prey, the same as there would be between grazers and grass, or browsers and leaves. On the same trend there, talking about predators and prey, I guess, a little bit. Elizabeth, you are wondering, what is the life expectancy of an impala? Well, it depends on where they are. In Sabi Sands, you don't have much time for getting old. As soon as you're getting old and slow, you're going to be, how do you say, on the menu, I guess. Weak animals, sick animals, old animals, injured animals, they become part of the predator-prey relationship in a much more direct way. But 6-8 years, I think would be a good age for impala out here. A little bit older as well. Under conditions where there's no predators, they can probably get a bit older than that. But I think about sort of 8 to 10 years, 6 to 10 years would be a good life expectancy for impala. And then coming back, again talking numbers, we spoke about the big five earlier. Okay, great, we've got a couple more answers and then we're going to get into that, because it's something I always find interesting. It's almost like it gives you maybe a slightly deeper understanding of the term big five in terms of its historical meaning and its modern day meaning is what I mean. I'm going to talk to you about that shortly as soon as I get a couple more of those answers through. awesome. Nice to hear that there's a bit of conversation around this as well. And this is what I really enjoy about the drives. It's one thing to sort of, you know, have a question and an answer is fantastic, but discussions are fantastic. Thinking about things and maybe comprehending something that you didn't understand before is always fantastic. And in fact, you guys have just done that for me as well. The question I had, and Claire and Gabby answered on the money for what I was thinking of, and I'm sure over the years I've talked about it a few times. But then we also had other answers which ties into this conversation. So let me start from the beginning. I said earlier that the Big Five term comes from the early hunting days, and those were the 5 most dangerous animals under hunting conditions. That's where it originated from. It then evolved into a tourism, photographic safari, eco safari term. The early terminology referred actually specific to the black rhino, because the black rhino, and trust me, black rhino is one of my favorite animals. You should ask HT about black rhinos. He's got a soft spot for them as well. Black rhinos effectively were the reason why HT ended up in Africa years ago. But black rhino are a very different kettle of fish compared to white rhino. And in the early hunting terminology of Big Five, black rhino was the one that was referred to. My question was, is there maybe more species that form part of the Big Five? And Claire and Gabby, you guys had it in terms of, there's actually 6 species that are included in the Big Five now. These days, black rhino or white rhino are referred to as Big Five in the sense of what we're doing, in the sense of seeing wildlife. So you actually have 6 animal species making up the descriptive term of Big Five. So that was what I was thinking of. Then a lot of answers that came through from you guys, Gloria was one, came through and said, well, you actually want to add other species to that list. In other words, you took the question and sort of flipped it over, which I really like, and this is what I love about conversation, is you said you'd like to add, and this is from different people coming through in the chats as well, in the tweets. Giraffe is one that came up quite a lot, zebra came up a little bit, hippo came up, and cheetah came up. And there is actually a term now that is referred to in the tourism industry as the Big Seven, which would be the Big Five: rhino, elephant, lion, leopard, buffalo, and added to that cheetah, and I've just gone blank. Wild dog. I was going to say giraffe because giraffe also ranges it, but wild dog. So that's the Big Seven, which again, if you're technical, you've still got 2 species of rhino in there, so it could be 8 species in the Big Seven. So guys, great discussion, enjoyed that, and I'm sure you're going to chat about it amongst yourselves a bit more. So we have this sort of Big Five term. I think we've talked about it in sort of different ways now, which can be made up, you know, technically out of 6 different species. Then the Big Seven term, which is also one that's being referred to more and more these days. And I'm going to ask you a question again, and it might have even changed. In fact, I'd love to know if there is actually an official thing. In other words, does Wikipedia give you something like that, or is there a specific reference to this? But years ago, and I'm talking about 98, 99, around that, just before 2000, I read an article in a magazine, I think it was Africa Geographic, I could be wrong, where they listed animals most expected, or what people expect to see when they come to Africa. So if you've never been to Africa and you're coming on this dream experience of what we're doing right now, what do people expect? What do they have in their sort of projected sort of mental image of what they're going to see in Africa? And I would like you to guess if you want, or go follow up and give me a specific feedback in the order of 1, 2, 3, 4. What do you think people hope to see and expect to see most when coming to Africa? As I said, this was the study I'm referring to now, or the reference was for tourism specifically, was about 20 years ago, 99, what's that, 15, 16 years ago. And I'm sure it's still the same, but interesting thing to think about. Another Ellie, we're coming up to Buffelshoek Dam, there's a bull elephant down there, and let's see what else might be around. And we'll get back to that question just now. What do people expect most to see when coming on safari? Other than, of course, a Land Rover. We're talking about animals. Perfect little place for us to sit, a bit of shade. Elephant, somewhere in the water there was a hippo earlier. I'm sure it's still around. Let's have a little look. Two hippos and oxpeckers, which are going to fly up as soon as the hippo goes under the water again. Well guys, we've just arrived at Buffelshoek Dam, pretty much the same as this elephant. This is a different ellie from what you guys were seeing with Hayden earlier. Just coming down for a drink. So we're going to spend a bit of time with him. I might actually go around to the other side, but let's just watch him drink a little bit. We talked about this earlier. Herman, if your class is still on drive with us, we were talking about the trunk of an elephant, the length of it, the use of it, and it is quite an interesting thing. Well, an elephant as a whole, but also the trunk in itself. Just look at how this elephant is drinking. And people often think the trunk is like a straw, something that it can suck the water up with. The trunk, keep in mind, is literally a nose. It's just very elongated. So it is used for smelling, and they've got excellent sense of smell. But it is also used for picking things up and breaking branches and touching and communicating with each other. You often get elephants smelling each other's temporal glands or touching each other's faces, and the mother may be pushing the calf along using the trunk. So it is a, in many ways you can compare it to a hand or an arm for us humans. But physically it is just a very long nose. So when the elephant's drinking like this, he's sucking water up into the trunk, same as you could do with a straw without sucking it all the way into your mouth. Sort of when the water's 2/3 up the straw, you stop and you block it, and then the water stays there. This is what the elephant's doing. He's sucking the water up, and then he's holding it in the trunk, and then putting the trunk in his mouth and blowing the water, or pushing the water into his mouth and stomach. So that's how he's drinking using the trunk. He's not a very old bull. He would have been independent or, left the breeding herds somewhere in the last few years only. I'd estimate him around late teens, early 20s, so 18 to 22, 23 years old, around that. Lisa's just wondering if I've ever seen a hippo elephant fight. Not really a fight, but I have seen, aggressive interaction, if you want to call it that, Lisa, where hippo, it was a specific hippo in Pilanesberg that used to mock charge and even bite elephants. But they don't really fight all that often. I mean, fighting normally, when animals really fight, unless it's something, fighting for his life, like a buffalo fighting back with a lion that's trying to hunt it or to kill it. That's one type of fight. But interspecies fights that are not predator-prey relationship, in other words, not one trying to eat the other one for food, it's not often you really get that. It does happen, but generally speaking, animals have evolved separate enough in terms of their food needs, their niches, that they can compete, but they won't really fight. So most fights amongst herbivores, amongst plant eaters, are mostly about dominance. So males fighting with each other over dominance, mating opportunities, territorial boundaries, access to females, or females may be fighting to protect their young, those kind of scenarios. Hippos and elephants, to just fight, even though it does occur sometimes, it's not something that's typical. lazy, happy days for this elephant. Good water to drink, plenty of food around still. Looks like a happy elephant. Thanks for the replies. We've had a few people come back to us saying the animals they'd like to see. And Mary, your answer very close to the one that I read many years ago. And what's interesting is that giraffe and zebra featured there quite quickly. And the study showed many years ago that what people expect or hope to see on safari is what we're looking at right now. That made it in there. What we looked at earlier this morning, lion. In fact, the order that the study showed at the time was lion first, elephant second. Let me just move a little bit because he's going behind us here, and I think he's coming around to drink on this side. So in order, at that stage, the study showed lion, second that people hope to see elephant, like this beautiful guy we're looking at now. And what came in third and fourth, I at the time found very interesting. And that was giraffe third and zebra fourth. And only then did things like rhino and leopard and so on start making it onto the list. This is a sort of a broad spectrum study though, obviously. So it just shows you what people really associate quite strongly with Africa. And certainly an elephant would be one of those, certainly a lion. But I can clearly see why a giraffe would be right at the top of that list. You know, there are such special animals, both, you know, out of interesting point of view, but also just visually. Giraffe are just amazing when you see them. Now this guy walked over here. I'm sure there's a few other reasons, but one of them was literally just to come and have a look at us. What are we doing? What are we up to? Because just as we are curious about them, animals are curious about us as well. And maybe over the next many years we will get better and better at understanding each other again, like people did in generations past. And we will get better and better at coexisting and spending time together. I'm going to just turn slightly. We are busy saying goodbye, guys. It's almost the end of the drive. Fantastic to end up with this nice elephant. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for enjoying the safari with us out here in Djuma. And I just want to say goodbye from myself, Peter Pretorius, also from HT. Hayden has gone back to get something on the windows. I need to rewind that. Hayden has gone back to get something on Wendy sorted out. So this afternoon we'll have both vehicles out. We're going to look forward to another adventure in the bush. And please join us again for the live safari in Africa. Have a great day, and we'll see you later. Bye-bye.